Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Alpha Male Perspective, Episode 2. And just like anything else, we're working out the glitches and all the kinks. We appreciate y'all being here. And one thing I would like to do is just start off with a quote. I think it was said by Nelson Mandela when he said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Well, that's one of the things we want to do here is change the world, or at least a perspective that you may have, give you a little education so you can actually do better in life. One of the things we want to start off with is on a lighter note. This week, Kendrick Lamar dropped a new video, new song, and and people are saying that Kendrick Lamar is the new GOAT. He is the he is the man. He's hot right now. If you haven't had a chance, you listen to part 5 of his song and listen for yourself. But I'm going to start off with one who's kind of familiar with the hip hop. We're going to start off with LV. What are your thoughts on the Kendrick Lamar song? And do you think he's good, bad, ridiculous, considering him for being the GOAT status?
At this point, I would have to say it's ridiculous. Kendrick Lamar is an awesome talent. I mean, I'm a big fan of like the younger rappers because I do like hip hop, but I come from the '80s when we had the real hip hop, and in the early '90s. But the boy is outstanding. I saw the video. Um, I like it. I mean, but I like a lot of his music. I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna vibe to it. But to put him in the category of the GOAT, to me, that's a bit ridiculous at this point.
As I saw the video, and I've asked this question to other people, does the video make the song or the song stand on its own? Coleman, what are your thoughts? Is this enough to say he's the GOAT, or he's on his way to becoming the GOAT?
No, he can't be a goat, bro. Um, but at the same time, he did some nice shit with this video. You really don't recognize some of it until you do a little research on it. So all these symbols, the faces that he showed and transformed into, he transformed because they had something to do with the number five. So you had Kobe won 5 rings. You had Will Smith slapped a man with 5 fingers. I mean, every one of them, it was,
Hmm.
and when you do the research on it, I'm looking at JP, because he crazy. But if
Right.
we ain't talking about Janet Jackson, JP really can't communicate in this type of language and conversation anyway.
That's why I
So
saved him for
yeah, so
last because I got
I
to
ain't
get
really
the
paying no
clinical
attention to his ass, old
perspective.
R&B ass. But anyway, um, but anyway, when you look at all the faces that flashed up, they had something to do with the number five. Even when he got to Nipsey and Nipsey's 5 principles, financial freedom and things of that nature. So I don't think the video itself makes him a goat, but I do think the things that he is doing with his videos are transforming the game and making people step their game up, especially since a lot of people are moving away from videos. And even if you get away from this song and you get to the song that he did on Pusha T's album, and he uses 1987 in there, and every time he uses 1908 and 7, it's a reference to the things that went on with his father, the penal system, the crack game, and how he equates himself as being, I guess you could say, dope, for lack of better terminology, with the crack game and using the numbers and how many ounces go into the gram and all of those types of things. So I don't think he's a goat. I think, like LV said, he's moving lyrically into a different stratosphere. He and J. Cole are really doing some things. He's not a goat lyrically at this point, but he is transforming the game with some of the things he's doing video wise.
And JP, I know you looked at it and you probably dug deep into the video itself, and I don't know if you dug deep into the lyrics. So, what is your perspective? Because I know Janet and Patti LaBelle are your goats, but so what is your perspective on being considered the goat being a bad thing, good thing, or just ridiculous calling them the goat right now?
Uh, I've been dreading this question because I just got to keep it real. I watched it. I couldn't really follow I didn't know. I couldn't even hardly tell what he was saying. I I felt 70 years old watching that.
Hey,
I'm
y'all,
just
but in
saying.
his defense, when about 30 years ago, when he should have been listening to hip hop and rap music, he didn't know it then either.
Mm-mm,
So
mm-mm.
he
Well,
didn't know it then.
actually,
He didn't. So
well,
I'm gonna
here's
give
my
him a
thought.
pass. I'm gonna give him a pass. You ain't got to be 70 because you
I,
don't know.
I bet you
Give
his favorite hip hop artist is Run DMC.
actually my favorite. When you think about
Sugar Hill
when it
Gang.
comes to the
LL.
GOAT, when you think about Pac and Biggie, Nelly is actually my
Hold up,
favorite. When
hold
you
up.
think
Now,
How
about
What?
you gonna
Well,
Pac,
even throw his
hold
you
on.
name in
just
the same
you just got
sentence?
LL,
disqualified, dog.
like
You just got
I
But once
disqualified.
again, who are
y'all
we
do
listening to?
know, okay, y'all do, if I'm not mistaken, if you do your
Yeah, pretty
research,
girlfriend.
Nelly is
Had a pretty
one of
girlfriend.
the most successful of hip hop artists. Like he has the most.
What?
Here's my point.
He's done a good job with his money. Yes, he's done a good job with his money. Yes,
He's
he's
made
been
a ton
smart.
of it. I really don't have much of perspective on modern day hip hop. Okay, that's my point. Okay,
We know, we know.
and
Well,
And I gave you a pass and an out, but you keep digging that ditch.
right.
I'm,
I
Giving
want to
you
ask
some
this
rope.
question.
I'm giving you
Sit,
some rope and trying to pull you out, but
I
you
was
keep
trying to
digging
figure,
deeper.
when I
Come
listened to the
on.
song, I was trying to figure out how it even became a discussion that what I was listening to was making him possibly be considered the greatest of all time when you think about artists like hip hop artists like Tupac and Big. I was confused. I was like, clearly I'm
well, I'm gonna come from this end. I'm gonna come from this angle because I know you had to suffer through it. So the imagery of the video, did that have any meaning for you? Since you couldn't understand the lyrics, could you see the imagery in the video and understand that?
He was so confused by the
after
lyrics, he probably
Tony
didn't
just
even see the
explained it.
faces transforming.
He couldn't.
After
He didn't see none of that.
can we
Go
move?
ahead, Cole. Go
Can we
ahead.
move on?
Oh,
I'm at a loss.
John, let me ask you a question. Let
Well,
me ask you a question because
yes.
you really didn't hit on it. So, where do you fall on the whole topic of Kendrick Lamar goat conversations and things of that nature?
Well, see, for me is what do you consider a GOAT? Because some people look at record sales, some people look at lyrics, some people look at the message in the music. And for me, I don't think he's a GOAT yet. I look at he's the best at his time, but when you can look at the younger generation, they are good with mumble rap and they're not listening to lyric content. So in a sense, unless you intellectually are stimulated by good lyrics, they're not gonna put him in that goat conversation. They're like he's entertaining. As far as me, I think if he heads on down this path and creates a good body of work, he would definitely fall into that goat status. But right now, I think he's the greatest of right now instead of greatest of all time.
Yeah, I think J. Cole's still in that argument as well. And I know
Oh yeah,
some people would throw Drake in there, but for me, anytime you have ghostwriters, you can't be in the GOAT
yes.
conversation. and Drake does that quite a bit. Although he makes good
You're an
music,
entertainer at that point.
yeah, he makes good music, but he's an entertainer. But I think you make a valid point when you start talking about um, how do you classify a GOAT? And I don't think any of us could have the same feelings on who the GOATs are because it's like the
Hmm.
whole Michael Jordan, Kobe, LeBron conversation.
Right.
We in that Jordan era. It's going to be hard for somebody to come in and tell me my era isn't the best era that existed. So
Right.
I agree with you when you just start talking about the GOAT conversation. If we're not going to qualify what a GOAT is or what goes into the making of a GOAT for us individually, it's a conversation that's going to be hard to sustain with any particular group, especially if you get people who are younger.
Do you
Were you gonna
all
say something,
know?
JP, before we move on?
Do y'all know who? Not that this is a measurement
Oh
of
shit, he ain't going
being
to go back to
great,
Nelly, is
but actually, no. I'm quite shocked at what I pulled up.
he?
Do
It's
y'all
probably
know
Eminem.
who the top 10 most successful best-selling hip hop artists are? Do y'all know who they
It's
are?
it's funny because I looked at a list the other day. I know
Guess who's at the top of the list?
they had Jay-Z at 14.
Drake or Jay Z was at
At
14.
14,
I thought it was.
yeah, they had
Okay.
It's
Eminem and
like
Drake and
Drake.
some of those younger
Let,
cats in there.
let me
Yeah.
run through this list real quick. Number one is Eminem with 227 million units.
Yeah, yeah.
Drake
So you're
is at
talking
number
about
two
sales.
with 152 million. Kanye West, this is infuriating. Kanye West is number three with 140 million. Jay-Z is number four with 125 million. Lil Wayne is number five with 110 million units sold. Nicki Minaj is number six at 106 million. Flo Rida is number seven with 102 million.
But see,
Tupac,
but you know what?
to
This
my
is the interesting
surprise,
part. This is the interesting part because they're talking about units, right?
You're
Which
right.
gets us
oh
back
yeah,
to the change in what it meant to sell albums. So
Hmm.
Eminem comes up on that late CD era, but early MP3 era, right? So now selling units is different. So when you talk about Jay-Z selling 1 million units, it means something different than it meant for Drake to sell 1 million units because Jay-Z had to get 1 million people out their seats, go to the store, buy the record, buy the CD or whatever, the case may be, and then
Hmm.
go pop it in the car, pop it in the crib. Now, I don't even have I can download Drake while we doing this video. I don't have to move. The convenience of music now changes the meaning of units. So units for
accessibility.
me cannot be a component of what a goat is because there's no effort in getting the unit.
Right.
Well, but they still have to have
Because then you
money
have to also take
to be able
live
to
stream.
purchase.
No, well, they make
No.
money, but see, you also have to take in YouTube because when you start looking at YouTube views, that's a different story. When you start looking at live stream, and that's a different thing. So there's so many things as far as what's defined as unit and different things. That's the reason why the GOAT conversation is so broad because you have so many people want to classify it on the units. Some people want to classify the dollar amount, meaning that who's worth the most.
And done.
Some people want to look at the body of work, Grammys, all those
And
different
then, bro,
things.
listen, they don't have to have money. Their parents got to have money. I have to check my account every week because my kids are on my family share with Apple. And they asses ain't got no concept of what money means.
True.
I'm
Well, the
6 seconds out
biggest
the penitentiary every day.
the biggest sales record sales in hip hop, if I'm not mistaken, does come from white youth.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
so
Suburbia.
yeah, so and that's always been the case. Um, Real quick, here's the last three. Tupac is at number eight with 75 million. Snoop is at number nine with 40 million. And may he rest in peace. DMX is at number 10 with 34 million.
Why did you say Kanye infuriated you?
I'm not particularly a Kanye fan.
Can you expand?
Now, did that change with time? Yeah, go ahead.
You mean did it change with mismanaged mental health issues? Is that what
Yeah,
you mean by?
well, we'll start. Yeah, start with
Yeah,
that because a lot of people were his fan in the beginning, and then over time they've changed. So that's why I'm kind of digging into what was it started off that way, or did you change over
I
time?
really didn't have. I didn't really have any pro or con, positive or negative feelings about him early on, but the poor mismanagement of mental health issues by any person who is a public figure and has the potential to negatively impact society, especially if they are African American, I struggle with that.
What do you mean the mismanagement of
Okay.
mental health issues?
Um, if a person is exhibiting symptoms of diagnoses such as bipolar disorder with psychotic features, the mismanagement of that, scratch that, the management of that is not only accepting responsibility for your psychiatric struggles, but doing what you need to do to manage your symptomatology so that you do not publicly exhibit behaviors that negatively impact people. Take your damn meds. Get like
that's what I was going to
therapy.
ask you. So you're saying if he had, so you're saying because he didn't take his medicine, that made him act erratically and do stuff that came off offensive to people,
Yes.
and that's why you have a dislike for him.
I have a dislike for things that he has said that I think are almost an embarrassment to the race. So, he did an interview where he talked about bipolar disorder. He talked about the psychosis, the paranoia, which is delusions of paranoia, which is psychosis. Um, and so I thought, well, he's fully aware because I had given the benefit of the doubt that okay, maybe he is unaware because a lot of times people come into therapy, they are not aware of what's going on with them. They just know like I'm struggling. I don't know what's wrong with me. And that's where the therapist is supposed to do their assessments and diagnoses and explaining the diagnoses and helping them to move forward with the management of it. So when I saw him do this interview and he laid out all his psychiatric diagnoses and the features of it, I was confused as to like, okay, so you're aware, you're just failing to manage it.
You know,
But
I, and then I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, JP.
no,
I want to get back to you when you said symptomology. I was like, he acting like that's just a common terminology that we use every day. Just be on here talking about symptomology. But I'm gonna let that piece ride. Uh,
Yeah.
but I
Hey, Coleman, I'm gonna let you make this final point because this sounds like another segment that we can dive into. But I'm gonna let you make this
cool,
final point, then we're gonna move on.
cool. The thing that I struggle with Kanye is Kanye almost presents himself in saying my craziness is my brilliance. He comes off at times as if he feels like if he takes his meds, if he gets back to whatever the normal Kanye is, that he will lose the brilliance that allows him to produce music, clothing, and things of that nature at the level that he's doing. Now, before you go into it, I'm not trying to make an excuse for him. I think it's further reason that he needs therapy and he needs somebody, in his life who can help him regulate that and get on track to help him pull the brilliance out of whatever the normal Kanye is. But that's part of what I hear. He's almost afraid of being normal, because for him, normalcy lacks the brilliance that makes up whatever the brand of Kanye is supposed to be.
In all fairness, because I always try to be fair and objective,
Hold up, you be
when
saying
people with
a
bipolar
lot of shit.
disorder, when people with bipolar disorder experience manic episodes, they do actually experience more creativity. There have been actors who would go off of their medication when they are filming certain movies that are high energy and they need to be really on. And so there is some psychiatric evidence supporting that he thrives during manic episodes. And when you hear about artists that are able to stay up 2, 3 nights in the studio recording music during manic episodes, yes, and their creativity is firing on all cylinders. The problem, though, is the on the negative side of it, the consequences of unchecked manic episodes outweigh that to those who are impacted by the manic episode. So for them, it's like, no, I'm great. I'm firing on all cylinders. But to everybody around them experiencing those mood swings, the rage, the anger, the impulsivity, they're like, damn, how much do we need to pay for creativity? And there are many artists who learn how to tap into their creativity and maintain it while also managing their moods. Part of what's going on with him is he also presents with symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder, which will prevent you from managing your bipolar disorder. Because a narcissist is always going to believe that they are king of the world, they are the best. Everyone else is beneath them. And whatever they do and say should be allowed. So one diagnosis is negatively impacting the other diagnosis and the management of it.
So because he's so creative and so dope, when he ain't on his medicine, he's like, "That's all I need. Y'all just need to deal with this other." Basically, he's telling them, it's gonna be a little bit toxic over here, but you gonna love it while you here. That's basically what you said, right?
That's pretty much what
You got to be careful.
manic
Hold on, you got to
is.
be careful when giving Ned that type of information now.
One, he does
He's,
not have bipolar disorder, so he does not get to use that
he
excuse.
sound like he about to use his powers for evil and not
Right,
No,
good.
I'm
right,
actually
right.
expressing what he said was Kanye is experiencing. That's all.
I hear
Yeah,
you.
Yeah,
I hear you.
LV,
because he's gonna
you do
come back.
not
Look,
Mindset. That's his
I'm
You do
mindset.
look.
not have that
listen,
diagnosis. You don't get
listen,
to
That's
use
his
that
mindset,
excuse.
not mine.
listen. This weekend, I'm just gonna ride by all the clubs to see if he out there in the parking lot talking about. Listen, you ain't got to be alone.
Right now is the best time to be
You
with
know
me
what I'm
because I'm
saying?
gonna take you to a
It
new
could be a
high.
little
I will be at
crazy,
home with
but
my
you gonna
daughter
live and love this.
watching her practice her cheers because she made the cheerleading squad.
And
So
tell her
Oh,
we say congratulations,
congratulations.
man. I'm so proud of her.
we'll do. We'll
I'm
do.
really
Congratulations.
proud of her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good time to segue into our today's perspective. And Coleman kind of hit up on it earlier when he was talking about the imagery and the information as far as the message in Kendrick Lamar's video and song. And the perspective I want to come at, and it's a very hot topic, is we look at in the 60s, 50s, you had the church to go to help with movements in the community. You had different fraternities and sororities stepping up and serving as leaders. You had the Masonic Lodge, and you had different people. So I'm asking this question today: are historic Black Greek letter organizations, the church, and the Masonic Hall, are they still relevant in our community and helping us assist in helping our young Black males? Because one of our viewers asked the question, she needs help with her two young Black male sons. But so my question is, are they still relevant to help? Because when you look at the church, they have this large usually large building in the community that typically, I'll say in the black community, that's typically when you look at the houses around, they're not as well off as that church. And then the church usually have events. Well, they have gyms and they have different things. And when we have a time where we need to circle and love on our youth, you're not able to go into those churches any other time besides Sunday and maybe Bible study. So what are your views? Are these organizations still relevant to assist our community? And I'll start with LV.
I believe they are there, but people also have to seek it out. I mean, the Black Greek letter organizations, that's what the majority of them are founded on as far as community service, and all have exceptional programs that help the youth. They get out to the ones that they can, but you as a single parent, it's an onus on you because I'm a single parent. I
Mm-hmm.
have a daughter, so it's
Mm-hmm.
not I can teach her a lot, but as far as being a lady, I can't teach her anything because I never traveled those roads. So I'm lucky that I have some resources within my family that can help guide her, as well as reaching for outside sources. The church, once again, it's all in where you're at with the church. If you're not that person
Mm-hmm.
that's with the church, that's why you have to look for other options. Um, but I think they maybe they aren't as prevalent as they once were, and it may be a reflection of what our communities are now, because now with you having the different diversities of families, it isn't as centralized as it once was. So you start to come away from what was that central core to where it was 30, 40 years ago. That's my opinion.
I'm gonna go to JP. What are your thoughts on the relevancy of these historic organizations that the community could turn to lead us? What are your thoughts? Are they still relevant today, or do we um, do it the best we can?
I think they are all relevant to varying degrees. When you think about the church, Black Greek letter organizations, which are your fraternities and sororities, and then the Masons, Masonic halls. To me, what the highest level of relevance, I looked at it from a perspective of how useful the organization or the entity is to the community, to the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And in looking at how useful they are, I broke it down to how accessible they are. The church, in particular the black church, is accessible on the broadest, most global scale within the community, more so than the fraternities and sororities and the Masons. I mean, church is there. You don't have to go to college in order to
Mm-hmm.
be a part of church. You don't have to pay initiation fees. You don't have to pay annual fees. You don't have to
You do
pay.
have to tithe,
You don't have to
Should be
pay.
doing that anyway.
You don't have to pay them. You don't have to
right? That's true.
pay a lifetime membership fee for something that you're already a lifetime membership to. And so, nothing against the other organizations, but the church is there and accessible to everyone in the community. So I think they're all relevant. I just feel that the church is more relevant. Um, Johnny Quick, you mentioned that the church oftentimes is the big structure in a community where the surrounding houses may pale in comparison. And that's where, yes, the tithing and the donations are coming in to be sure that that church, you know, ends up what it is and the presence that it has. But the purpose of it, as far as being there and being accessible to everybody, regardless of your level of education, your income, and etc., the church is there. And I think it's the most relevant, and I think it is, the most impactful. in the community.
And coming before I go to you, I want to add this little bit in there. When you look at since the 70s, the churches have taken in the black community $800 billion in money goes to the church. And I want you to think when I mean relevant, when we're a community trying to grow our wealth and have the Black Wall Street, wouldn't you think a body, let's just use the church since that's the one you brought up, will be able to pool their resources where they could set up. You want the congregation to give 10% of your tithing for tithing. What if the churches were able to give 10% of what they've collected and use that as a fund to help start businesses in the community? And so I want us to really think about deep into the relevancy of how we can use these organizations to build the wealth and not just looking at it as community service, but also looking at the financial sense of that. Coleman, what are your thoughts?
I think it's varying degrees, right? Because the first thing is,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think organizations lose their relevance. I think that leadership
Okay.
loses relevance. And when I look at the black church, you have various varying degrees of leadership. So I live in Dallas, and I've been fortunate where I attend the Potter's House. The way I
Mm-hmm.
started going to the Potter's House was my sisters go there, first of all. But then I go to serve. I was down in Dallas working because I'm in the insurance field, and I was traveling because I was working a hailstorm. I was down in Dallas working, and um, Bishop Jake said, I want all my business leaders to come to a meeting after church. Well, I fashioned myself a
Mm-hmm.
business leader, so I went and got in line. My sister was like, "What you doing in line? You don't go to here." I said, "Bishop said he want all the business leaders." Bishop started a
Right.
series where he was doing quarterly, where he was bringing in speakers from around the country, various business. The first speaker was one of the first black CEOs of a large bank, and she talked about entrepreneurship, and she talked about all these different things and exactly what you're talking about, how to access money, where the money is, and talked about it from various degrees. So I think when you look at leaders such as Bishop Jakes, and there are a ton of others, um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Pastor Junior down in Jacksonville, Florida. I mean, there are a ton of pastors out there that are doing it not only, and Creflo Dollar's another one, where they're not only speaking the gospel, but they're also speaking finances in the gospel. And as they do that, they are moving away from simply preaching the Old Testament, where when I was growing up, I felt like church was about fear. Reverend Watlow and them, great pastors, but it was all fear. It's like, hey,
Hey, Coleman. Well, Coleman was making a good point. I'm sure he'll be back with us. Um, and so I want to just say some of the things I've thought about until he rejoins is when you look back at,
my fault, bruh.
unfortunately, the demise of Dr. Martin Luther King. um, Coleman, I'm going to let you come back to your point
Okay,
because I want to put this out
I
there.
apologize.
Is Oh, you're fine. On the balcony, when right after he was killed, you see a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, Phi Beta Sigma, Omega Psi Phi, and Kappa Alpha Psi, and that was during that time when a lot of your Black Greek led organizations were out there marching. When you look at Fannie Lou Hamer, Rosa Parks, um, all these Coretta Scott King. When you look at these different people, you see that's where the Greek led organization was there, but they also started meet. They met at the church. And Coleman, I'm gonna come back to the point that you were making.
Yeah, and that's where I was getting back to the point where it was just saying um, that it's more about leadership. And even when you start
Mm-hmm.
talking about the Black Greek organizations, um, I think they're very relevant. And I think it's in two parts. It's not just simply where Gerald was talking about as far as access from a membership standpoint. But I think they're
Hmm.
back in the community. They're doing a lot in the community where they actually are serving and doing some of the very same things that we're talking about with the black church. So I think all the organizations are very much alive and very much impactful. And I think it's about leadership. Who is leading those organizations and what impact?
I agree with you. It's definitely the leadership, and that's one of the things I wanted to say to our viewers and our listeners. If you have some thoughts on the impact of our community, be it the Greek letter organization, be it the church or the Masons, send us drop us a line on Facebook under Alpha Male Perspective, so we can hear your thoughts. If you feel that these organizations could be more involved in our community, or if you feel that they're just fine the way they are, let us know. If you agree with us or disagree with us, send us a message, and we would definitely look at it, respond, and discuss it later. I want to further go into this a little bit more, and then we'll move on to our final segment. But a lot of places around the United States or even the world, you have such a silo or fragment of each one of the organizations that's doing great work. But I'll tell you about some of my experiences, because you can kind of say the same about me, if you will. Our listeners may not know I started a nonprofit called Legacy, and working with youth. And some of my experiences, and this is not something that's just local, because I've had this conversation with people across the nation. When you try to work within the community, let's just say, I won't just limit it to churches, I'll limit it to any organization. One of the things that I run across are, well, whose name going to be on the marquee? Whose name is going to be bigger? Who's going to get the most credit? And I think when you have those roadblocks, that kind of stunts your growth, or that holds you back, because you have too many people not, in my opinion, not focusing on the right thing. They're not focusing on helping the community or serving the community. They're focused on who gets credit for helping the community. And then when you look at some organization, when you ask, hey, you may not have a program, but can we utilize your facility so we can bring programs in to serve the kids that are in your immediate community or in your areas? And then some people have closed the door and said no, or how much will we make off of this? And so it's either a money grab, or it's they're using now, a clout grab. So who gets the clout for it? And so what do you have you experienced anything? Because you find in this area, the Greek letter organizations, they have great programs like the I believe the Kappas have the Esquire. You have the Signals have their programs. You have the sororities that have their organization, and so you have these, and the Alphas have go to high school, go to college, that focuses on getting kids from high school to college. So you have these different organizations that have different programs, and some places are doing well. But when you talk to the community and they ask you, they'll tell you the reason why they don't go to church. It could be spiritual, or when you ask them, what do you see in the community? Usually they say the Greek letter organizations, they're known for parties, they're not known for anything else. And I know that's a very general statement, but when you're dealing with the community, and we look at how many black males are killed at the hands of ourselves, the police. You look at how many black males are not going to college as much as they used to, and that rate is falling off. And so we're here with the alpha male perspective. So I want us to really put some perspective on where do we, because one of the gripes you'll hear is, well, the black community is always looking for a leader to lead us, we need to lead ourselves. Well, what is the narrative for us to really get involved and deal with these? Because we had a parent that reached out and asked, how can we serve these black males? And all three of you are parents, and so I know, and that's another one I've heard, I'm taking care of home. But for those that are not taking care of home and leaving their kids to go out to the community, how do we look at that perspective, and how do we look to uplift our community? Let's go from that approach. JP, I'll start with you.
Okay, your question is how do we individually, what we individually need to do to uplift our community?
What do we need to do as far as individual, but how do we garner the moving from individual to a larger scale? Because if we have people asking, how do I help my young black males as a parent? What do we tell them as far as resources? When we have collectively across the nation, a lot of the black males are are failing to go to college, or they end up dead by the hand of our own community or the hands of police. What do we tell our community as far as individually or collectively?
I think it takes a combination of both. I think individually, we have to identify what we individually can do to be a positive impact and influence in our community. Now, when like minds come together, and we do have to put ourselves out there to connect with like minded people so that we can also impact our community as a group and on a broader scale. But the individual piece just depends on what every individual's contribution can be. It can be anything from, hey, I'm a big brother with Big Brothers and Little Brothers organization, or, I provide tutoring, or for professionals, doctors and therapists and people like that, providing us, a certain amount of pro bono services to people who cannot afford your services. That is what you can do on an individual basis. But when we join organizations, like you mentioned, your organization Legacy, people who want to impact society on a bigger scale can work with an organization that is providing things like what Legacy provides: tutoring and the arts and all those different things, literacy programming and all those different things that whatever the organization is providing. And so I think everybody just has to, have a desire to impact on both a micro level as an individual and on a macro level as a part of an organization or a group.
Carmen, what are your thoughts? Where do you think we could start? Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Mm-hmm. That hits home. And LP, I want you, since you are the single father on this, and you're raising a lovely, beautiful daughter, and we had a single parent that reached out. Can you give us your perspective to help answer that question for her, and how do you deal with the community at the micro and macro level?
Well, I mean, once again, I think you have to take ownership as the parent. You have to try to put your child in situations that you want them to be in, that you know that they're going to be in a more positive situation. You don't want to bring people around them that are in a negative light. And like me being, a single dad, I don't bring a lot of women around my daughter. If a woman comes around my daughter, I'm going to make sure she meets all the criterias of what I feel a proper lady should be, because that's what I want my daughter to see, so that she can see that to emulate is how she should guide herself. But I still have to instill things in her. But I also have to seek out those, if I wanted to get her involved with a sorority. That's on me to find out what they have going on, or even if it's through the church, having her involved. And you have to keep your child involved in things, and that's how they get exposed to other avenues, uh, be it sports, dance. There's different type of even academic type groups. You have to seek out. Maybe you have a kid that's very good with computers and they're very technical. There's all kind of clubs and stuff that you can start reaching out, trying to seek out to get that child in that. But once again, you have to make sure that the people that is involved with that are good people. So that's where you, as the parent, you have to do your due diligence. You can't bring the trash around them and not think that they're not going to get dirty.
I agree. And I'm gonna close this portion with my thoughts. I think that we have to start somewhere, and one of the reasons this podcast here is to educate and help and start and have people have those thoughts and those that critical conversation that will make changes. And like everyone has said here, it starts with being involved, being present. You can be a parent and be present. You can be a community activist and be present. As long as you are there, you will start to change with the community, and you'll start to change the narrative of our community. Sometimes we allow the media, social media, to create the negative narrative for our community, and we have to start changing that. And if this little area here starts that, and we link up with other podcast community organizations that can help start that, it begins somewhere. And for the parent that reached out, like LV said, you want to find an organization that can help your males. It could be Big Brother, Big Sister, it could be 100 Black Men, it could be a Greek letter organization, or it could be your church. You want to get positive role models in your lives, and just be real about it, because, like LV said with his daughter, he doesn't bring all women around. If you know there's some men that are not going to be good for your kids, don't bring them around because one of these old IT thing is your output is only good as your input, and if you're inputting trash, your output's going to be trash. And a part of this is helping educating our community, which we're going to move into the bonus segment. Is it's going to be a little bit lighter because I want y'all to talk about it. It's just the financial literacy aspect of our community. And I know, Coleman, you're into insurance. And I just want to start because this will be a regular segment where we talk about financial literacy so people can walk away with a little nugget to do something. But, in so many years in our community, we're gonna start with this, and then we'll move on to something else. But so many years getting life insurance was a stigma. But what I've learned is that life insurance is what helped created some generational wealth, or has helped a lot of families. So Coleman, can you give us a little aspect on life insurance that our people, our listeners, can listen to and get some information? We'll start there. Man, um, JP, I want to come to you on this, and not necessarily just about the life insurance, but I want you to speak from a perspective of the mental capacity you have to get yourself to start changing the way you do things, as far as learning how to start saving, learning how to wrap your head around life insurance. What are some of the things that our listeners can do to mentally prepare? Because this is a huge shift for people to understand, because they have the mindset that it takes a lot of money to save, a lot of money to have money. So, can you speak from that standpoint how a person can mentally prepare themselves to think financial literacy?
I think, knowledge is power. It's about knowledge and awareness. And I'm not sure that we have expounded upon what you initially were stating when you opened up this segment. I agree with everything that Coleman is saying about having insurance so that you can bury your loved one, so that you can be able, if you have an accident, your car can be replaced, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Not just having liability, the bare minimum, but having full coverage. Um, so I agree with all that. But I want to acknowledge what you were saying. I remember years ago that I had read that a lot of families have elevated the entire family for generations by having not just enough life insurance to bury their loved one, but enough life insurance to alter their entire lifestyle and existence. And that's the piece that I want to be sure that everyone is clear on is if you, let's say you have a $750,000 life insurance policy, $1 million life insurance policy. If God forbid something happened to you, that is enough life insurance to way above and beyond burying you and making sure the house gets paid off. Your children, you have ensured that their lives will be different at that point because you have left them with enough money to invest it properly so that they can build upon that wealth. And there are families who have old money, the old money in America. When you do the research, what they made that leap via insurance policies, life insurance policies. And so I just want to be sure that everyone was clear on what you were talking about is using life insurance as one way, at least, to elevate your children and your grandchildren and everybody's lifestyles by having enough and teaching the financial literacy as far as investment, which is what you were just asking me about. That is also about knowledge and education. I when I talk to my kids about investing and having them to open, stock accounts and purchasing stock, and instead of focusing so much on having the latest iPhone, purchase stock in Apple so that when all your friends are buying iPhones, you making money off of it. You know, that is something that young people are not getting enough knowledge in that area. And the truth of the matter is, there are people our age who do not have enough knowledge in that area, whether it has to do with life insurance, whether it has to do with investing in companies. This is not something that is being taught in the educational system. It falls on parents to teach it, but a lot of parents do not know it. And so, we have to go ahead. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. 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 Or the steel company. Right. 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 Well, brothers, we gonna run out. We gonna run out of time a little bit. I want LV to chime in, but that's the reason why I said up front. This is going to be an ongoing segment, so I definitely want people to pay attention because you're gonna learn some financial information. But LV, I want you to have a chance to say something.
I mean, basically, it's just a synopsis of what everybody said, but you have to start somewhere. You have to have a foundation. There's levels to this. You don't automatically start out buying stock. You don't do that. If you don't have the foundations of something such as having renter's insurance, if you don't have a home in the event, especially if you know that you live in maybe a high crime area, you may need to spend that extra money to have that renter's insurance in the event that someone does break into your home. You can replace your items. You don't fall back into a deeper ditch to try to get back where you were at. You just had your head right here. It's levels to it, and you have to take the steps. I mean, there are people that are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old still haven't figured it out. But once again, you have to seek out some of that knowledge for yourself. There's a
Right.
wealth of things out there if you only take the chance to look for it for yourself. I mean, reading is fundamental. I mean, it's just that
Mm-hmm.
simple. Not trying to be a jerk or anything like that, but you can't wait for somebody to come give you something because you feel you
Spoon feed
may
you. Right.
that you're in a bad situation. So, I mean, you have to take that initiative. And that's how your children learn that as well. It's not somebody else's responsibility to step in and show them that. If you're in a situation that's just you have to try to find those resources. I was always taught use your resources. There are always
Yes.
people that are around you that have a lot of knowledge. And if you know that that is a good person, whether you may not like them or not, you may need to use them for that knowledge for your child. Take yourself out of the equation. You have to be selfless. I said this last week when I said what I left behind was being selfish. It's not about me anymore. It can't be about you. It has to be about those boys, or it has to be about those girls. It has to be about those kids. That's the mentality that you have to have. Then you can start taking those levels. And then they're going to see that and you can instill that in them. They may one up you on their start to it. But I'll get off
Hey,
my soapbox.
that's a good place to end because we want people to leave. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. 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 Oh, definitely. Yeah, and that we're gonna definitely end on that note because we will be here all day, and that we want people to tune in and listen and learn more.
For
Because
me to say,
one thing is, when you say levels, the one thing that I didn't touch upon, what gets you to those levels is improving your credit score. That gets some things going for you. But we, like I said, we're gonna talk about that later. Please like, share this podcast. We want you to put in comments things you like, things you didn't like. And on that note, we're gonna say goodbye. Thank you for joining. I want to end with that quote I started with. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Hopefully today you listen, got some information that give you a little education so you can go out and change the world. Thank you.